Since graduating with my bachelor's in English, reading has been an interesting pastime for me. I used to read a book a week for each class. Combine that with taking 3, 4, 5 classes a semester, and it got to the point where I stopped enjoying literature and started just reading to get by. Don't get me wrong, I love getting my degree. We explored tons of complex issues, but the actual act of reading had taken a turn from fun and something I did, to escape, into this serious effort, no matter the context or the text. It's taken me around a year or so to get out of that mindset because of these books, and so I wanted to share a few of them that have helped me love reading again, not just analysis. So, the first one, The Great Gatsby. For those of you who know me, hold on, it's my favorite book of all time, so I needed it to be first on the list. F. Scott Fitzgerald, this is one of my many copies. I've kind of made it an almost mission to purchase as many copies as I can. And I have like 4 right now, because it's my favorite. It is one of the classic American novels. It's read all over to define a moment in our country which was rife with separation from the old, new beginnings, and a force to be reckoned with to try to conform with the old. And this has always been happening in all kinds of literature, but that's why I like this one. The first time I read it, when I was a freshman in high school, and I was very touched by the story and the message I took from it, which is no matter what, you can't repeat the past. That is a line that everybody thinks of when they think of this book, but really, dwelling on things that can't be changed will only limit how you view yourself and the possibilities you can have. The way F. Scott Fitzgerald romanticization of every encounter Nick has via the first person has with anyone he notices is really something I appreciate. I don't usually like first person novels. They kind of take me out of it, which is kind of interesting because a few of these, actually I'm pretty sure all of these actually are first person, which just tells you maybe I do like it. But Nick narrates in a way that makes me want to spend time with the people in this story who don't have any say in the narrative, because Nick responds to them as if they do, because obviously he doesn't know. A character doesn't know they're in a story, but we do. And I like exploring stories that do that. The descriptions are emotive, they're open, focusing on how the reader ought to feel, rather than just providing a backdrop and saying maybe this is a conversation that matters. There's clear ways of writing that tell us this conversation matters, and it's so short, which means that you have to take everything in. There isn't any filler. That being said, Fitzgerald did write in a time where women, mainly white women, were demanding things from a world that had kept them stagnant. But knowing the history of the time and seeing antiquated beliefs present in this novel also helps the side of my brain that wants to analyze something. So to not take everything as this is the American novel. It is for that reason exactly. There's always been problems with discrimination, and I think having those moments in this book can help any reader realize that that's exactly the point in this book, is, well, in studying the book, is that this isn't perfect, and neither was the past, and we cannot continue to romanticize it, and we shouldn't repeat the past. Interestingly enough, the novel itself really wasn't one the public considered to be very interesting until after his death, Fitzgerald's death. I wonder what else we might have now that when we're all dead, they might find to be the American novel of our time. Rereading this again for the 9th time. I've read it every year since my freshman year in high school. Helped me restart my brain and look for the joys in reading again, instead of just analyzing things. I highly recommend for anyone who's trying to find the joy of reading again and who likes the classics. An easy, straightforward, pretty short classic. The next one is Call Me By Your Name. I read this book for the first time last summer, and I've been thinking about it a lot. Pretty much actually ever since. Anytime it's warm out, I'm like, maybe I should just start this again. I will later this summer, but not right now. It's published in 2007, which surprised me. I thought it was an even older book. I guess it has that vibes because it was set in 1980s in Italy, northern Italy. I don't think we ever find out exactly where, but I also could be wrong because it has been a year. The writing style, location, perfect for nostalgia and new ideas. Romance. Elio as a narrator is one of the better descriptions to me of how young people can feel about love, like a deep, they're thinking of deep questions, and these questions they believe they found the answer to, and then only their answer is the correct one, and then something happens where they have a realization that there can be more than one way to think about love. I read it as a young adult, not a teenager, so I read it through the eyes of someone who loved deeply and who was hurt deeply too. Of course, with any romance novel, but specifically this one, there are moments that are uncomfortable, mainly about the age gap that's between the two love interests. I don't think that's a good way to put them. It feels more than that. And different scenes that I wouldn't necessarily find appealing, but that's something I really like, is to feel discomfort while reading and continue reading because it's so well written. And I wanted to, even if I was put off a little bit, I wanted to explore more because of the writing style and the way that Elio narrates things. I didn't have a deadline to complete this, so it took the whole summer. It took me 3 months to read this. I really sat with each chapter after I finished it, and I felt like I did truly sit with what was going on. I would consider this to be the book to read if you like to see how affection and obsession can be mistaken for one another. Attraction can be such a complicated feeling, and both of these two men, well, have a different opinion on what those two mean. It's a stunning story. Can't wait to read it again this summer. It brought out the desire in me to read things and feel them, and to feel discomfort when reading something that was so beautifully written. Next is The Black Stallion by Walter Farley. I don't have a copy with me. The only copy I've ever read is from my local library, and it's printed, and it's a hardback, and it's so pretty. But I'll put a cover of it here. I read this the time when I was a child. I don't remember how old I was. When I was riding once or twice a week, riding horses. I don't ride anymore, but I'm looking to get lessons again. But rereading it helped me channel my younger self. There's always a good thing about reading books you read as a child and realizing, this was not the most amazing book that I've ever read, but at the time it was, and that's a beautiful thing to know, is this was an amazing story. I really found meaning in it, and I still find meaning in it, even though I've read stories that are more meaningful to me now. That self used to read all day and all night, and reading this book helped me find her again. The Black Stallion follows Alec and a stallion that he meets on a boat ride back to New York from India after traveling there for, I believe, a year. The boat capsizes it, and along with it, Alec and the horse, whom he names the Black, have to survive on a deserted island by themselves. Once they return to New York, it involves training the Black to be a racehorse with the help of a neighbor who used to be a really famous jockey. And they eventually enter him into a match race between the Black and a really well-known horse who is in the New York racing community. I don't know. Despite the book being dated and its portrayal of people from the Arabian Peninsula, I value its message, its perseverance, and knowing that I also value that when I was younger was nice to come back to. I was glad to have reread it. and know that I've learned since then to know that those stereotypes were not accurate and to recognize them immediately. Yes, it is a children's book. Yep. But the nostalgia was strong. I really like the nostalgic books that I could reread. I do reread books quite often, and it brought me back to a time when I thought reading was the most fun in the world, and I can appreciate that. Fourth on my list, The Islands by Dionne Irving. This was a surprise read. I was walking in my local library, and there's a little section that you can pick up books that they've had in the library, but I guess weren't checked out enough, or they've just got too much space, and you can buy them for $1 for paperbacks, $2 for hardcover, and they've got CDs, whatever. Anyway, so The Islands, collection of stories. It's very exciting to read. Because it's so recent. I haven't really read many recent books. It's 2023, so relatively recently. My creative writing professor showcases stories of assimilation and connection within the Jamaican diaspora throughout the world and various decades, specifically, or most often, United States and United Kingdom. Each character, each story was so real, authentic and relatable in different ways. I felt like I was back in college for a little while because I hadn't read a book that was just stories, and that was a good feeling. Irving's style narration was a perfect mix of blunt and expressive. Every single one of these narrators were so honest in their narration, which is something I enjoy. Most of these stories are based in or around London in different decades, so I couldn't help but think my sister, who is currently completing her master's degree there, I imagine she might have some different thoughts about the book, but that's something I love about literature. No two people can have the same takeaway, and no two people will relate exactly the same to each of these narrators in every story. Reading a collection of stories meant I was comparing and contrasting the characters and the messages in each one, which is something I used to do very often in school in my classes, is to think deeply about them. And that's one thing I really enjoy about books that are collections of stories, is there's a lot of room for that kind of analysis. They really made me think about what it means to belong, and why that feeling is something we search for. That's most of these stories. They're searching for that belonging because of their message of connection or lack of connection. So I recommend giving this one a read if you're interested in that. The fifth one is Talk Before Sleep. This is my second most recent, my most recent finish. Yes, by Elizabeth Berg. And this one is a novel. So moving. Very honest as well. So real and very well written. Like I said before, I genuinely try to avoid first-person narrated stories, except for The Great Gatsby. But this story, I don't think it could have been told in third person, and if it was, it wouldn't have been the same. It tells the story of Anne and her friend Ruth and their friend group. Ruth is dying of cancer, and the story is told in segments that swap back and forth between the present and flashbacks. There are no chapters, just moments, and that's something I liked about the way this story was told. The structure is a long conversation between sadness and gratitude, despair that losing someone so incredible and so soon, and the thankfulness to be able to love them in the present and in the first place. This was very moving, especially because it focused entirely on female friendships, which are incredibly deep, and anyone can find themselves in any one of these friends in this book. So give this a read if you like to focus on the connection between female friends and life and death. Okay, number six, Othello. This one is another tradition read, as I call them. I have read this play once every year since my freshman year of college, so that's 5 times this far. And each time I feel so connected to it, I can't really explain it. The betrayal, loyalty, love, fealty. I took this class originally. Excuse me. I read this book originally for a class I took. But the class and the professor and this play really touched me in a way I can't get over and I can't explain anymore. But it's inside of me. The play focuses on power, who deserves it in the eyes of society, and what happens when those in power who are those people that society deems they shouldn't have enemies, and what happens when the people without power snap. Power and love are 2 things intertwined with each other in Othello. This is shown through the way the Othello interacts with his young wife, the relationship he has with her, his new lieutenant, his allies, and enemies. Love is equated with respect, and vice versa, which are 2 things that are quite complicated in the human experience. Othello, like the islands, brought my brain back to a place where I can find fun in the analysis of the play, since it's no longer a requirement. That's something I felt each time I reread it. The text always gives me something new, something blaring that I had not seen the other times, and something that I repeat in my brain over and over again. Act 3, Scene 2, I think that's the one. It's been a while, excuse me. That helps me get back into that college mindset without the stress of knowing I need to go write a paper on this text. Which is why I keep coming back to it again and again. Tragedy still happens, and each time I flip to Act 1, Scene 1, I still expect it to turn out differently, even though I know it won't. And that is the draw to tragedies. Okay, another Shakespeare play. Surprise, surprise. The Winter's Tale. This one is, I believe, less popular, but it may be just that's what my professor told me. It's especially interest to me because of the sudden tone switch it has at the end. I'm not going to spoil it, but decisions that King Leontes makes do not end entirely in tragedy. And instead, there's a kind of redemption, and the initial tone of this play made it seem as though that this story would end in complete tragedy, rather than actions having consequences but get sort of redeemed. Perhaps it's a direct antithesis to the reason why I love The Great Gatsby, which is the present and the future can be made better, but only after acknowledging that the past is gone and unattainable. The Winter's Tale is one of Shakespeare's easiest plays to read, I believe, which makes it a great candidate to read. I think you should read it if you're trying to get back into reading and want to feel exceptionally accomplished for reading a Shakespeare play, and to say that's the one that got you back into reading again. The global politics was also interesting and straightforward. And if you have a limited knowledge of Shakespeare's time, it will be perfect for you. But knowing little does go a long way. Rereading another play I needed to read for class. It was just as exciting. I found new details I missed earlier, and reading complicated historical texts in college prepared me for the knowledge that are in these plays. And that taught me that my brain actually did retain the information that I have in my degree. Love that. Finally, we have Wāhine Koa, which is edited by Noelani Goodyear Ka'opua. On a whim, I literally just Googled books written by and about Indigenous Hawaiians. And this is the first non-children's book that showed up, which was a little disheartening. but I'm glad that I read it. Now, Wāhine Koa is a collection of stories told by Goodyear, 4 women who were and are leaders in the movement for Hawaiian sovereignty, mainly sovereignty against the United States military. She interviewed these women and edited their stories in a way that their messages would be told in a linear way. It was sort of like I was sitting around a campfire and listening to these women talk to each other instead of being in a conference room, but it still had a deeply academic feel, and it was actually requested through my local library from Michigan State University's library, which was like full circle. I felt as though I was in over my head reading this book at first. I was seeing referenced events that I had never heard of, and I had to constantly put this text down to open my phone or laptop and look them up, which was so exciting. In the introduction alone, I had to stop 10 times, at least, just to be sure I knew the context of each new event being mentioned. But as the book moved into the lived experiences of these powerful leaders, I found I no longer needed to bring my phone up. And in fact, there were instances that I had already known about. Specifically the movement against another telescope being built on sacred land. Reading this book and hearing firsthand accounts of the struggles from the 1980s in Hawaii brought back my love of reading. Because reading is not just about entertainment and enjoyment. It is about education too. And that's why I love reading. It allows me to seek out knowledge, especially the knowledge I would not have gained had I not been curious enough to just open my search engine and look books up. So, after getting my bachelor's degree in English Literary Studies, I thought it would take me some time to enjoy reading again. I'm not sure if 1 year is a while, but I am grateful I did the work and took the time. I've always loved reading. I always will. These books specifically helped me find that love again. Old flames. From old flames to new loves. These novels, collections, and plays will stay with me as I continue to search for the next spark in each book I read. Also, I just finished Dominion by Addie something, and I'm almost done with San Francisco Stories, edited by Matthew Asprey. This is a collection of stories by Jack London, set in or around pre-earthquake San Francisco. So, keep reading, keep loving. See you again soon.